Hey there, I'm Jeff from PixelJar, and we help hundreds of businesses just like yours get the most out of their websites. And today I want to talk to you about conversions. And I'm hearing this a lot. I'm having this conversation over the last month or so where people are talking about we get traffic, but we don't get conversions. And those conversions could be sales, clicks, form fills, whatever it is, that ultimate outcome that you want from your client or from your visitor, right? So, why isn't your site converting? There can be a number of reasons, and it's all stuff that can be fixed. What I don't want you to do is think this website's not working, let's trash this website and start over. You're probably going to wind up with the same problems that you started with. So let's talk about number one. Number one is you could have misaligned goals on your website. So though your website might look good, it may not be well built to drive those conversions. So you could have this very polished website and it looks like it should be working great, but it's not meeting your business objectives. So this shows up, you can have too much clutter on your page, you have unclear calls to action, maybe some generic messaging, or you're talking too much about what the factual thing that you do is versus kind of talking about the outcome that you're trying to provide, or the pain you're trying to relieve, or the time you're trying to save, or the money you're trying to save. Again, people are emotional. They want something to be made better in their lives, right? So this matters because without those clear goals, your website becomes more of a passive brochure. It's a PDF you could have handed to someone at that point rather than this proactive sales tool. So you get traffic, but there's not the engagement that you're wanting to get. So the biggest takeaway I want you to take from this, number one, this misaligned goals idea is, what is the most single important thing you want someone to do when they come to a particular page? Now, each page of your website can have a different goal. It's not that the entire site has to have this one goal. But if what you want is for someone to download a PDF, let's say, don't have 6 different things you want someone to do on a single page, hoping that they're going to find the spot where you need to download the PDF when you're introducing all these other ideas. Again, people's attentions are short, and when they're on your website, there's a good chance there's a lot of distraction going on. So the phone has a text message that comes up, someone comes walking in your office or your work area, an email comes up, there's 1,000 things calling for your attention. So think about how you use the internet all the time, right? When you're looking at a website, how often does that website actually have 100% of your attention? How often are you reading every bit of text on that web page? And again, your site is so important to you, and I understand that, but to someone else who's a visitor, they're coming in a little bit casual, most likely, right? So keep that in mind. So really take their hand and walk them through the process that you want. So if you wanted them to download that PDF, explain why they need this PDF, how it's important to them, what problem it's going to solve. Here's where you can get it. When they scroll down, if they haven't downloaded it yet, here again is another opportunity to download that link. And again, this could be anything. It could be a form fill, a sale, whatever. But again, really make it so seamless for the person to go from a cold visitor to a full conversion. All right. Let's talk about the next part of that, which is that actual call to action. So again, going with that PDF download link. Weak call to actions can really slow down and gum up the gears of your machine on your website, right? So a lot of websites will leave visitors confused about what's going to happen next, or the button doesn't really tell what's going to be the outcome. So if you have a button that just says learn more and it downloads, again, a PDF, the learn more didn't really correlate to what was going to happen. And yeah, you're going to learn more by reading the PDF, but that button should indicate what's going to happen by clicking that button, which is you're going to download this PDF. So we see this very, very often, which is websites rely on these very vague or these very passive things in the button labels. And it's like, again, learn more, contact us, get your action verbs in there, right? Remember your ninth grade English. Action verbs are so, make it exciting. Give someone a reason to want to click on the button or do whatever the action is that you want them to do. Another problem is that the call to action only happens once. And this also falls into the weak calls to action. So again, it could be at the very bottom of the page. So you're assuming someone's going to scroll all the way down before they actually see that call to action that you're wanting them to do. Which again, think about how you use the internet. How often do you scroll to the bottom of a page? Again, if you're genuinely invested in what's going on and you become emotionally, okay, I need the thing that we're trying to be presented on this website, then absolutely, you are a low percentage engagement visitor for that website. That's not typical. That was you really getting involved in what was happening. But again, most people are pretty passive until they've had time to sit with you and learn about what you're offering. And then they decide that, okay, now I'm really ready to give out my email address or download this PDF or make this sale. All right. So with those CTAs, be obvious, be specific, and repeat these things. So again, you don't really know when the user is going to want to engage. So give them several opportunities. Are you ready now to do the thing that I would like you to do? If not, that's okay. We'll scroll down a little farther. How about now? Are you ready now? And this matters because everybody's different and you don't really know, again, everyone's coming for a different reason. You don't really know when they're going to be ready to engage. So again, you want to keep that offer there and keep presenting why it's going to be important. So the thing you want to take away from this weak call to action section is, again, don't be vague, make it exciting, be obvious, be specific. But also, if someone's ready to take action, can they figure out what to do in like 2 to 3 seconds? Like, okay, they're on your page and they've decided, okay, I do want to do the thing. At that moment, how easy is it for them to actually do the thing that you wanted them to do, whatever that conversion is? So let's talk about the third point of this, which is having traffic with no strategy. This one's a little tougher, but this is the idea that more visitors to your website aren't going to help if either they're the wrong visitors or they're going to the wrong place. So you really have to kind of think about, where's the traffic coming from? Who are those people? How do I speak to that audience so that they, again, are convinced to do the thing that we want them to do, whether it's the form fill, the button click, the sale, so on and so forth. So getting people to your site, that's like step one. Then your job is to convince them to stay on your site and engage. So if the traffic's unqualified or if visitors land on the wrong page that don't match the intent, they're going to bounce. So strategic traffic means attracting the right people and then guiding them through your website so that they do, again, the thing that you want to do. So you kind of want to have a traffic strategy. Without that, your content and your offers won't be seen by the right people. So you'll get the high bounce rate, you get low conversions, and wasted ad spend. So the thing to take away from this is, again, it's a tougher thing to deal with, but what you want to ask yourself when you're dealing with this is, are the pages that matter the most getting the most traffic? And are they the most likely to convert? So this is when you kind of want to look at your stats and you want to see if you have built a page that is your landing page, and this is your squeeze page, it's the page that's meant to convert. And 1% of your traffic is going here and 99% is going to a different page. Again, you kind of need to think about maybe that other page needs the attention. So it's really looking at your traffic, figuring out where they're going, and then trying to speak to that audience. All right, idea number 4. There's lots of designs that are very distracting. And this is a trap that's so easy to fall into. As an owner, you are very excited about what it is that you're presenting, whatever it is that you do. I build websites all day long. I get excited talking about building websites. And I can get very nerdy about it. And I will go on and on unless you stop me and say, hey, that's why it's your job. I don't want to do it, and I'm going to pay you to do it. So this is the trap of all the bells and the whistles that you'll see people put on their websites. Ultimately, again, what people are usually looking for is relieving pain, saving time, saving money, making themselves happy, right? And an animation on your website isn't necessarily going to make them happy or sad or convince them to fill out your form or not fill out your form because the button wiggled or something like that. And it's not that the button wiggle can't be there. It can. But if all the content is not really walking the person through the journey that you want them to go to, or worse, if all these little things that you've added to your website for flair are causing the page to load slowly, you might actually be losing that visitor before they even see the content. So if you've got a bunch of sliders, a bunch of animations, all kinds of JavaScript, again, nerdy stuff going on so that the page takes 10 seconds to load, there's a good chance that maybe 10% of the people that try to go to your website will actually stay on your website, because every second it takes to load, you start losing people. You want that site to load in under 2.5 seconds. And if that's not happening, you really need to take a look at how to improve that speed time, because again, all the bells and the whistles in the world aren't going to work if nobody's seeing the bells and the whistles. So again, sliders, animations, flashy graphics, again, they're neat. And again, you do want some interest on the web page or website, but not so much that it's distracting the user from what it is that you actually want them to do. Do you want them to notice that the button's wiggling, or do you want them to click on the button? So keep those things in mind. Distraction will kill momentum. So if your visitors are confused, if they're overwhelmed, if they're unsure what to do next, there's a good chance they are going to bounce. And that is the last thing we want. So effective design kind of creates a nice little flow. It creates a story. Think of it kind of like a movie, right? Like you have an introduction, you introduce the characters, then you introduce the plot, then there's conflict. You don't want conflict. That's not part of your site. But everything that's going on the web page should support, again, that one primary goal that you want on that web page. Each page should have its own primary thing. And it's not that you can't have other things. You can, but those should never get in the way of that one primary thing that every page is meant to do. So for this, designs that distract, number 4, ask yourself this: is the design guiding users towards that next step? And if not, figure it out. Remove that hurdle, pull that dam out of the way. All right. Number 5 on my list, and this is so vitally important, is measuring for success. This is when I speak to all these people who say they're getting traffic and not sales, my first question is almost always, what does your data say? And I will say 1 out of 2 times, people tell me that they are not tracking the data, which just means they're not using Google Analytics, the Google Search Console, maybe Fathom Analytics, Microsoft Clarity, all these things that help you track who's coming to your site, how they're coming to your site, how they're interacting with the website. And if you don't have the data, then you're just guessing. And if you're just guessing, you really aren't going to make any sort of improvements. And more importantly, you cannot measure whether the things that you're doing to make changes are actually affecting things positively or negatively. So you absolutely have to be tracking your results. Guessing is wildly expensive. And this matters because all these websites get launched and they don't have clear tracking in place. And if you don't know what your visitors are doing, you cannot make smart, intuitive iterations to your website to try and move the needle in your favor. And again, this goes to people feeling like something's happening, so they make a change. Feelings aren't data. Data will drive your decisions. So measurements mean knowing what is working, what is broken, and where to focus next. And you want to measure these things very carefully, and you want to test for changes. You don't want to make 9 changes and then see what worked, because if it does start working a little bit, maybe 4 of those 9 things were actually effective, but you won't know which of those 4 actually made the change. So you want to, it is a slow process, but it is an effective process. And without data, you're just flying blind. You're wasting time. You're guessing at changes. You're looking for quick wins and probably missing some quick wins. And you're struggling to justify why you're doing what you're doing. You're probably wasting time on development, wasting time on trying to guess at what the visitors are doing on your website. So tracking this data turns your website from just a brochure, again, to a measurable business asset, which is really what you want this thing. You want this thing to be an engine that's driving people towards you and whatever it is, that goal that you want of your users. So when it's all said and done, are you tracking your data? Please be tracking your data and know what the pages are doing. Know what your high traffic pages are. Know what actions users are taking. Are they following your funnels? Is all the data driving towards the results that you want? And if it's not, use the data to figure out where those blocks are, where those hurdles are, and start removing those blocks and those hurdles. So let's talk about statistics and where you are, just so that you know what is average and what's normal, because sometimes you will see that you get, 1 out of 100 visitors actually buy something or fill out the form. And maybe your feeling is that's not good enough, but maybe it is. And again, here's some average stats. These are just, again, to use as a benchmark to kind of help you figure it out. So conversion rates on an absolute average are about 2 to 3%. And again, conversions can be anything from a sale to a click to a form fill, whatever it is you want. On average, most websites do about 2 to 3%. So if you're in that range, you are average. The best sites in the world can maybe get this up to about 10%, maybe a little more. So keep that in mind so that you know what you're doing and what to kind of expect as doing average, doing well. If you're in e-commerce in particular, it's usually more around 2%. And if you're doing like a SaaS, like a business to business thing, 1% is kind of a typical conversion rate. An average time on page. So when a user comes, on average for all the websites in the world, it's usually about 90 seconds. So think about that and look at your stats. If you get people on average on your website for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you're above average, and that's awesome. Also, an important thing while you're tracking your data and you're working on your website, do make sure that you don't bring up your site and you look at it and then leave it open, because if you are not excluding yourself from the data, you are contributing to the data, which you do not want because you are not the average user. All right, high performing sites, again, it doesn't get much higher. You maybe get 2 minutes, right? And again, this is what I'm talking about. People's attentions are very short. They make decisions very fast, and they are very emotionally based decisions. When you're looking at your page, look at it from the point of view of you've got maybe 90 seconds of someone's attention. How long is that page? Can they genuinely get through that in 90 seconds? More importantly, when you look at your website, also remember that hero section, that above the fold section, everyone who comes to that web page will see that. And then again, statistically, only about 2 out of 5 will actually do anything else other than bounce. So spend so much energy on that moment, because that moment is buying the next moment of either a scroll, a click, whatever it is. All right, let's talk a little bit about time to conversion. So again, on average, when a conversion actually happens, so you get the button click, the sale, the form fill, whatever it is, on average, that's about 2.5 minutes of engagement, maybe 3 minutes of engagement. So again, the longer someone's there, the more likely they are going to make the conversion that you want. And when they do convert, the number of pages they will view goes up. So if they convert, they usually look at 3, maybe 4 pages. Sometimes it's the one. If you only have the one, then obviously that stat doesn't make much sense to you. But again, the more pages they look at, the more likely they are to convert. And if we're looking at form fills as our conversion point, typically, again, about 90 seconds before they decide whether to or not fill out your form. All right, let's talk about page load speed and conversions, because that's important too. So for a conversion to work, on average, your page needs to load in 2.5 seconds. And I mentioned that before, and I know that feels unattainable, but it absolutely is. And again, you got to think about it from this point of view of you've got about 90 seconds on a page. Is your page already too long? Because once you start cutting things out, your page is going to load faster. And again, those bells and those whistles are the things that are really going to slow down your website. So use them judiciously and make sure that they are in an effort to make that conversion happen. 2.5 seconds. On mobile, load times get so much slower because someone's out and about, right? And they're on a cell network, not on a Wi-Fi. And look at your traffic and look at your stats, because there's a good chance about 50% of your traffic is coming from mobile. And if your load time, again, if it's getting very high, you're losing half of your possible conversions because your site's loading too slow on mobile. Do not ignore mobile. We see this a lot too, where people think it looks great on desktop and they're done, ready to go. That was half the problem. Mobile is the other half. Really tune into that, because again, when people are out and about and they're bored, they might make a decision in your favor to buy something, fill out a form, click a button, whatever it is. And you don't want to lose half of your customers because your site's loading too slowly on mobile. And as I mentioned, bounce rate increases for every second that page doesn't load. So the faster you can get your site to load, the better it's going to be for those conversions. So thank you very much for your time today. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Really look at your website like a fresh visitor would see your website. You've been with your website for such a long time. You know what it looks like. You know where the data is. A new visitor is going to have to take some time to figure out what it is you're trying to tell them and what it is you want them to do. make that process so very easy that it's unbelievably obvious that, oh, this is what you wanted me to do when I came to the website. Here's the thing that is my ultimate reward for doing what you want. You can do this. I believe in you. Have a wonderful day, and thank you very much.